Hey everyone, Jake here from CVP. We've been using the Canon R5 C in our studio for close to 3 years now, and in today's video I want to reflect on our time using it, discuss why it still might be worth checking out in 2025, and explore Canon's latest firmware update which adds even more features to this already jam-packed camera. One of the big things that made us choose the R5 C was its image quality. When we originally tested the R5 C, we shot some beautiful footage on a crisp winter morning in Bushy Park, and honestly, looking and processing the rushes from that shoot made us fall in love with this camera. The footage is so clean, crisp and detailed. It of course did help that we shot on a truly gorgeous morning in a great location, but still we've relied on this camera to capture behind the scenes, B-roll, and pretty much every single talking head that I've recorded since 2022, and it's delivered every time. Shooting in 8K is definitely overkill for some of what we shoot, so when it came to behind the scenes, we mainly shot in YDR in the camera's 4K XFAVC modes, which for fast turnaround projects produces nice, detailed and colourful imagery. However, our talking headshots are shot in RAW and then processed through Resolve out into a ProRes file for us to cut and render from. This meant that we ended up with some pretty large files and some detailed unforgiving footage of me talking, though we did use some black mist diffusion to help smooth me out a little bit. But having the option to shoot incredibly detailed internal RAW, which you can manipulate well in post, is fantastic, but it is quite taxing to edit with, which is why we often transcode it to ProRes through Resolve before importing it into Premiere for an edit. There are so many great internal recording options on this camera, it just makes it so versatile. And with the release of Canon's newest firmware, you now have the ability to use their new LPE6P battery, which was released with the R5 II, with the R5 C to unlock internal RAW LT up to 60 frames per second without the need for external batteries. The R5 C sensor has a dual native ISO of 800 and 3200 in its RAW mode, but this changes when you change your gamma. When shooting behind the scenes and events, we shoot in quite unpredictable environments, so this comes in really handy when you want to bump your ISO up. In its stills mode, the R5 C is just an R5, which means it's a pretty amazing stills camera with similar image quality to the video mode, but of course in its stills form. It's a great stills camera, and again we've shot a lot of behind the scenes, events and thumbnails with the R5 C. These 45 megapixel stills are very detailed, which makes it great for thumbnails where we often comp, reposition and layer our edits. Having the ability to capture both great looking video and photo just with the flick of a switch is one of the main reasons why we chose the R5 C, as we really needed a camera that acted as a hybrid for our workflow. Our main studio cameras over the past few years have all been Red. We started with a Gemini, then moved on to the Komodo, and we now use our trusty Komodo X. And I think the R5 C cuts really nicely alongside Red's modern systems. While Canon's colours are a bit more punchy, I do think they can be matched decently easily, and for our shooting style, I think the combo of these systems works really well together. And obviously they both share the same RF mount, which for lensing is really helpful. The R5 C is a true hybrid camera, and a pretty unique one compared to the rest available. In the camera, you effectively have an R5 when you're in the camera's photo mode, and then as soon as you switch to video, you have Canon's cinema operating system found in their dedicated video cameras such as the C80 and the C400. You can easily switch between these two different modes by using the dedicated button, and while this isn't instant, it takes about 3 seconds, and Canon have actually improved the speed of this with firmware over the years since it was released. It's also quick to boot up, which is good for this type of camera. Having the two separate systems means that you can easily transfer your knowledge to stills cameras that use the same menu, and then their cinema EOS cameras that use the same menu system as the camera's video mode. Personally, I find the cinema EOS menu system really easy to navigate and better for shooting video compared to their stills menu. However, I have grown up using Canon's DSLRs, so using their stills system for photos is great and really intuitive. It really is great to have the best of both worlds in a single camera body. The video menu system is very well featured. You have a bunch of exposure, focusing and monitoring tools, and plenty of video functions to choose from. If you want to keep up with the latest and greatest kit, please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And if you want to buy anything you see in this video, or want to get your hands on the R5 C, or any other kit for that matter, head over to cvp.com where our experienced team is waiting to help you. The autofocus of the R5 C in its stills mode is great, and in video, while a bit dated compared to the C80 and C400 system, is still very robust. And even more so now with the many firmware updates they've pushed out for the R5 C over the years. Especially with their latest update, which adds a couple of tweaks and changes which are great to see. You can now touch to toggle autofocus object tracking and move the AF frame and focus guide with touch as well. These are some things that have been missing for a while now and will transform how people can use the camera. I really wish the touch tracking was something they added sooner, as it's something we've wanted in the camera for a while now, as we shoot lots of products. So this system being available with touch would have really helped during our shoots. Throughout the years, we've used autofocus and manual focus on the R5 C, but having a solid autofocus system like this is always really handy when shooting in run and gun environments, which we often do. The R5 C's physical design is one of the key things that makes it so unique. It's clearly started out as an R5, but with a few key improvements and changes to make it better for shooting video. The biggest has to be the addition of the cooling system at the rear of the camera. This makes it very reliable for shooting video and far extends the recording time versus the original R5. We've recorded with this camera for hours and haven't had any issues with recording limits or heat management. It's rock solid. It does mean the back of the camera looks a bit bulky, but the system works really well. Otherwise, it looks and behaves like an R5, with similar buttons, mode dials, and controls all over the body. This means it's a very compact camera that can shoot 8K RAW internally with no restrictions, and to a normal person, this can easily just look like a regular photography camera, which means it can draw less attention than a larger cinema camera. I love the way this camera feels in the hand. It balances so well, and the grip is really nice, especially for handheld behind the scenes shooting. It's great. I just wish it had sensor stabilization as well as the digital IS in the camera. And we've actually used the digital IS a good bit, but results can vary depending on the situation. But it's always helpful to have, and with their new update, Canon have aimed to improve it even more. They've added a new motion vector for digital IS function. This is trying to prevent the shake that could happen when using digital IS when filming a subject with a large amount of movement. So hopefully this means that digital IS is a bit more reliable and predictable. It even uses the same battery as the R5, which is a good and a bad thing. It's good because you can use batteries that have been available for years now that you might have from existing cameras, but in the camera's video mode, the R5 C is a bit of a power-hungry beast, so these small batteries do have quite a short life. However, it's very easy to either carry a few extra LP6 batteries or run external sources via a dummy LP6 battery or via the camera's USB-C PD port, which we've done loads during our time using the camera. It's been pretty common practice with the R5 C that we've had a nice long USB-C cable run into a battery bank in our rucksacks or in a pocket to save us from changing batteries too often. Since the R5 C came out back in 2022, Canon have pushed out 9 firmware updates, which is really impressive. And these aren't small updates either. There are some really good additions and changes here. Canon has done such a great job of keeping this camera and the C70 updated and fresh over the past few years. And with their latest 9th firmware, the camera again has improved. We've detailed a few of the big talking points throughout the video, but there are of course a few other small changes. The firmware is available to download now on Canon's site, link to which I've put in the description. I really do hope they continue to improve the camera via firmware, but with the R5 II coming out, should we expect an R5 C II? And what can we expect to see in it? Well, the R5 C is actually very close to being pretty much the perfect hybrid camera, but I do think there are some things that could be added or upgraded. First off, and probably most requested by end users, is improved dynamic range, which goes in hand with internal C-Log2 recording. Currently, you can only use C-Log2 when you bring your RAW footage into your NLE of choice, but it'd be great for Canon to modernise all of their cameras to just use one log profile, like Sony have, and C-Log2 should be that log profile. With the extra dynamic range, I think it would be good for this new camera to have sensor stabilisation, which the R5 C doesn't have, improved readout speeds, and a triple native ISO, similar to what we have with the C400. It'd be great to also see updated frame rates like 8K 120 and 4K 240, that would be amazing to see, and a compressed 4K RAW video mode would be great as well. I know this one's a bit of a stretch, but internal NDs would be amazing to see as well, but I understand this would probably change the form factor of the camera quite a bit, so it's probably not possible. I would also like to see some kind of unification of the autofocus systems between the cinema camera operating system and then their still system, as currently I do feel like the autofocus does behave better in their still system compared to the video one. This is just generally something that I would like to see Canon improve, as the R5 II system in its stills mode is really impressive, and I would love to see that level of performance across their entire cine and video camera line. And of course, some improved still specs would be nice as well, but the R5 C already performs very well in this department. We actually reviewed the R5 C all the way back when it launched, so if you want to learn more about the camera, check that video out. We still use the R5 C occasionally, but our talking head cameras and BTS camera is now the C80, which I'm using to film right now. Anyway, let us know what you think of the R5 C, or if you have any further questions about it in the comments below. And if you like the video, please give it a like, and maybe consider subscribing so you don't miss out on our awesome upcoming content. And thank you so much for watching.